Hello everyone, today I will be reviewing the first Swiss watch in my collection that I didn't sell, and I won't. The Tissot PRX, a watch I have been drooling over the past 1 year, has finally arrived in my collection early April 2022, and I am very happy with it, even more so than I was before honestly. The Tissot PRX is a beautifully designed retro-inspired watch with an integrated bracelet. The relatively new release by Tissot features both brushed and polished surfaces reminiscent of the surfaces found on the Royal Oak. But no, the watch is not a Royal Oak clone, as a watch snob might say. Tissot is just copying what the big boys have. A brushed watch with an integrated bracelet, it's literally a Royal Oak, you shitty poor person. Excuse me for that. But you are slightly wrong. The Tissot PRX is an homage to one of Tissot's own vintage models, the Quartz C-Star, which was later renamed the PRX. Its design may be inspired heavily by the Rolex Oyster Quartz, which was released roughly a year before this. Yes, not the Royal Oak, the Rolex Oyster Quartz. If you are the inhuman being that believes that your opinion is final and everyone is wrong, you are wrong. Saying that Tissot PRX is just a copy of the Royal Oak is literally saying that Rolex copied Audemars Piguet, which is impossible, isn't it, Mr. Watch Snob? From another point of view, the Tissot PRX may still have been inspired by the other watch companies at the time, and even in modern day, seeing the rise in popularity of watches that share similar aspects, such as a sporty design, an integrated bracelet, and also angularly brushed and polished surfaces. I will still be comparing it to a Royal Oak, however, due to its provenance. Both watches were made to combat the effects of the quartz crisis. The original PRX featured a beautifully finished case, just like the modern one, satin brushed bracelet links intercepted by flashes of polished edges, just like an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. The watch is a truly pretty object to just stare at. Sadly, this launch in 1978 was not super successful, and they eventually halted its production. In 2021 though, Tissot had not only introduced the new Tissot PRX in quartz, but also in the new Powermatic 80 movement. The Powermatic 80 is developed based on the tried and true ETA 2824 movement. The movement is essentially a modified version of the 2824, where the frequency is lowered from 28,800 beats per hour to 21,600 beats per hour to give the Powermatic 80 an impressive 80 hours of power reserve. The case of this watch is made in your average 316L stainless steel and is finished spectacularly. With a mixture of brushed and polished edges, the watch has an extremely sporty, sleek and retro vintage look to it, like a more simple version of the Royal Oak. The integrated bracelet of the watch is also satin brushed and are made of solid links. This integrated bracelet design gives the watch a 2-no shape with a sideways width of 40mm and a lug-to-lug of around 45mm and a good thickness of 10.9mm. The watch, in my opinion, wears closer to a 41mm than a 40, like most watches with an integrated bracelet do. This may sound large for the thin-wristed among us, but don't fear, due to how flexible the whole bracelet is, the watch actually fits thin wrists quite well. The Tissot PRX also features an anti-reflective coated sapphire crystal on both sides, one above the dial and one on the see-through caseback. The thin midsection of the case at around 5mm also adds on to the thinness of the case, making it look thinner on hand than it really is. The watch is made extremely solidly, excluding the clasp, which I will talk more about later. The case is finished well and is machined out of a solid piece of stainless steel, giving the watch a rather weighty feel, weighing in at around 138 grams. The bracelet is made of the same solid stainless steel and feels really good. There's not much sideways play in the bracelet and no inconsistency in motion as well. The crystal sitting on the dial side is slightly raised, increasing the quality feel you get from the watch. Underneath this crystal sits a sunburst blue waffle edge dial, this dial being one of the points that attracted me the most to this watch. On the circumference of this dial section sits the cleanly mirror polished domed bezel of the watch, once again adding on to its dressy sport style. As much as this watch is brushed and covered in metal, it's not really a scratch magnet, which is a good thing, as in my own experience, a scratched up brush surface is the most irritating thing one can see as a watch collector, coming only second to someone recommending you a Daniel Wellington. The display caseback of the watch features a small window of sapphire surrounded by a polished circumference, with the etchings of Tissot 1853, the other specifications of the watch, and also a reference and serial number. Beneath this caseback lies Tissot's new pride and joy, the Tissot caliber Powermatic 80.111. The Powermatic 80 movement is a caliber made by Tissot and is based on the legendary ETA caliber 2824-2, ETA being a large Swiss movement manufacturer and also a subsidiary of the Swatch Group, of which Tissot falls under. Now, what's the difference between the 2824 and the Powermatic 80? Well, first of all, as the name suggests, the Powermatic 80 has a power reserve of around 80 hours. Tissot had made some modifications on the ETA 2824 movement and successfully gave it a new, much longer power reserve as opposed to the 38-hour power reserve of the 2824. There is, however, a slight downside in more of a visual aspect. The Powermatic 80 beats in at a rate of 21,600 beats per hour instead of 28,800 like the 2824. So in improving the practical aspects of the watch, Tissot had to slow down the beat rate of the movement. This, in my opinion, is really up to the owner of the watch. Yes, I did hesitate a little bit when I found out, as I care just a little bit more about the smooth sweep than the power reserve, and besides I like winding my watches anyways. On the other side of this coin, the 80-hour power reserve makes this watch a better piece for practical usage, not requiring you to have to wind the watch every single day. The Powermatic 80 being a decent Swiss automatic movement and winds and hacks. It also features a crisper date change than most of the cheaper counterparts from the land of the rising sun, flicking over from one day to the next as it closed in on the final minutes of a day. In an attempt to increase the accuracy, the watch comes with some patented technologies developed by the Swatch Group, one notably being the Nivachrome balance spring. This balance spring is developed in collaboration with Audemars Piguet to create a balance spring resistant to stronger magnetic fields and temperature variations, resulting in an increase in accuracy and precision. However, even if this is so, Tissot does not include much information about the average error rate of the watch, but on my personal piece, I seem to get less than 5 seconds of error on a daily basis. As we move along to the external parts of the watch, we find ourselves looking at the bracelet. The integrated bracelet is made of solid stainless steel and is precisely and smoothly satin brushed. The satin surface of the bracelet genuinely feels smooth on hand, as if I was sliding my fingers on just bare metal. The satin finishing slides perpendicularly across each link and is broken by a slice of mirror polishing hidden in between each link. This gives the watch what I call a chandelier bracelet effect, an effect of which can also be seen on the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. The bracelet sits extremely comfortable on my massive wrist and fortunately does not tug on any of my arm hairs. The links on the bracelet also have an extreme range of motion, capable of bending 90 degrees in both directions. This gives the Tissot PRX a better wearability for a larger range of wrist types. Speaking about motion, the links are also lubricated really well and don't get stuck whatsoever. This speaks for the precision in the machining done on these links. Now on to the bad part, and possibly the only bad part of this watch. The clasp on the Tissot PRX is none other than your average butterfly clasp. The build quality on this is nothing to call home about, but it's also something I can let go, seeing that this Swiss automatic watch costs less than $1,000. The clasp on this thing is built substantially better than those that can be found on say a $200 to $300 AliExpress special, but still feels flimsy at the area where it comes into contact with the bracelet. But besides its flimsiness, I can account for its durability from a design standpoint. Oh, and the bracelet also features a quick release option, which may mean that the leather strap, as seen on the other versions of the PRX, may be available on request at Tissot boutiques and authorized dealers. I also do hope that Tissot comes up with new strap options like a rubber or fabric strap. Now I am going to speak about the elephant in the room. One of the main reasons why I chose the automatic over the quartz version of this watch, the dial. The dial is very similar to the one found on the Royal Oak. In fact, it's sort of between the 15202 ST and the 15400 ST. The only thing in which the Tissot lacks is Audemars Piguet's stunning dial tapisserie. The dial on my PRX features a sunburst waffle design, one of the greatest dial designs in my opinion. Being a lover of sunburst dials, creating a waffle dial out of it or any texture on it is just stepping it up, I feel. The waffle and sunburst effect gives the dial an indescribably sparkly effect. It's no longer your boring old sunburst dial that you literally can find on a $100 Cadison. It's something more, it's something beautiful. It's like adding another dimension to it. I really have no words. As much as this is the case, the Tissot waffle dial is most likely computer machined, seeing that the valleys in between each square of the waffle is filled in wherever there is wording on the dial. Nonetheless, the dial is still my favorite thing about the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80, with build quality coming in a close second. Besides the beauty of the dial, the wording of Tissot 1853 and Powermatic 80 are printed precisely on the dial in a crisp font. The date window features a silver edge that very smoothly transitions the deep blue dial to the white date font. Though I would love to see Tissot create a custom date wheel based on the color of the dial for each watch in the PRX collection, whilst also removing that silver edge on the date window. The hour markers on the watch are thin and filled with lume. They are fabricated with angled bevels, giving the dial even more sparkle than it already has. This, along with the well-finished and lumed hands of the watch, create a nice contrast against the dark dial. The hands of the watch are reminiscent of both the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona and the Royal Oak, having the 3 different partitions and secluded lume pits like on the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, and the hexagonal shape with polished edges like on the Royal Oak 15400 ST. Because of the small ass hour markers this watch has, the lume on the hour markers can only do so much. With its pits filled with Swiss Superluminova, the hands and hour markers glow a beautiful turquoise green color. This Swiss lume that Tissot uses is pretty decent, but is genuinely nothing special. The lume is not super sensitive, nor is it super bright. It definitely cannot compare to some brands around a similar price range, like Luminox, Seiko and Citizen. Now we talk about price. This watch comes in at around $650, which is pretty decent if not just a bit steep, taking into account its brother with a quartz movement sitting at around $375. There is, however, a decision to be made here by you, dear viewer. If you were buying this watch, would you go for the automatic or the quartz? The quartz, having a pretty darn reliable ETA quartz movement, also comes in at a thinner 10.4mm. The dial includes many different versions of the standard sunburst styling, some of which includes some slight texture to it, like a brushed dial. It also includes, wait for it, the same build quality you get with the automatic version of the watch, the only differences being the thickness and the 3 grams. The automatic version comes with Tissot's Powermatic 80, a movement that you have to service more often than the quartz, but you also get along with it your very own mechanical watch, which in watch collector enthusiast terms gives the watch more tangibility. The Powermatic 80 version of the PRX also comes with that wonderful waffle dial on the watch, something that I truly love. The waffle dial comes in both blue and green now as of 2022. Anyways, that's about all I can say about the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80. Let me know in the comments about which one you would get, and what you feel about this release from Tissot. Do leave a like and subscribe if you are entertained by my informative blabbering. And once again, thank you very much for watching and have a very nice day.